Good evening and welcome back to another episode of The Longing. Today we are once again going to be continuing to read the Iliad by Homer. So let's get going. Ooh, that was weird. It kind of looked like the shade was gonna jump off the chair. Anyway, let's get going. When now Sarpedon his brave friends beheld, grovelling in dust and gasping on the field, with this reproach his flying host he warns: O stain to honour, O disgrace to arms! Forsaking glorious the contented plain, this hand unaided shall the war sustain. The task be mine this hero's strength to try, who mows the whole troops and makes an army fly. He spake, and speaking leaps from off the car, Patroclus lights and sternly waits the war. As when two vultures on the mountain's height stoop with resounding pinions to the fight. They cuff, they tear, they raise a screaming cry. The desert echoes and the rocks reply. What has just happened? I think the shade has just jumped off the chair. The warriors thus opposed in arms engage, with equal clamours and with equal rage. Jove viewed the combat, whose event foreseen, he thus bespoke his sister and his queen. The hour draws on, the destinies ordain. 245. My godlike son shall press the Phrygian plain. Already on the verge of death he stands, his life is owed to fierce Patroclus's hands. What passions in a parent's breast debate? Say, shall I snatch him from impending fate, and send him safe to Lycia, distant far from all the dangers and the toils of war? He just sat back on the chair and he's jumped off again. What is going on? Or to his doom my bravest offspring yield, and fatten with celestial blood the field. Then thus the goddess with the radiant eyes, what words are these, O sovereign of the skies? Short is the date prescribed to mortal man, shall Jove for one extended the narrow span, whose bounds were fixed before his race began. How many sons of gods foredoomed to death, before proud Ilion must resign their breath? Were thine exempt, debate would rise above, and murmuring powers condemn their partial Jove. Give the bold chief a glorious fate in fight, and when the ascending soul has winged her flight, let sleep the death convey by thy command, the breathless body to his native land. His friends and people to his future praise, a marble tomb and pyramid shall raise, and lasting honours to his ashes give. His fame, 'tis all the dead can have, shall live. She said, the cloud compeller overcome, assents to fate and ratifies the doom. And again he's jumped off the chair. Then touched with grief the weeping heavens distilled a shower of blood o'er all the fatal field. The god, his eyes averting from the plain, laments his son predestined to be slain. Far from the Lycian shores his happy native reign, now met in arms the combatants appear. Each heaved the shield and poised the lifted spear. From strong Patroclus's hand the javelin fled, and passed the groin of valiant Thrasymed. The nerves unbraced no more his bulk sustain, he falls and falling bites the bloody plain. Two sounding darts the Lycian leader threw, the first aloof with erring fury flew. The next transpierced Achilles' mortal steed, the generous Pedasus of Theban breed. Fixed in the shoulder's joint he reeled around, rolled in the bloody dust and pawed the slippery ground. His sudden fall the entangled harness broke, each axle cracked and the chariot shook. When bold Automedon and to disengage the starting coursers and restrain their rage, divides the traces with his sword and freed the encumbered chariot from the dying steed. The rest move on obedient to the rein, the car rolls slowly o'er the dusty plain. The towering chiefs to fiercer fight advance, and first Sarpedon whirled his weighty lance. which o'er the warrior's shoulders took its course, and spent in empty air its dying force. Not so Patroclus's never-erring dart, aimed at his breast it pierced a mortal part, where the strong fibres bind the solid heart, then as the mountain oak or poplar tall, or pine fit mast for some great admiral, nods to the axe till with a groaning sound nods to the axe till with a groaning sound it sinks and spreads its honours on the ground. Thus fell the king and laid on earth supine, before his chariot stretched his form divine. He grasped the dust disdained with streaming gore, and pale in death lay groaning on the shore. So lies a bull beneath the lion's paws, while the grim savage grinds with foamy jaws the trembling limbs and sucks the smoking blood. Deep groans and hollow roars rebellow through the wood. Then to the leader of the Lycian band the dying chief addressed his last command. Glaucus, be bold, thy task be first to dare the glorious dangers of destructive war, to lead my troops to combat at their head, incite the living and supply the dead. Tell them I charged them with my latest breath, not unrevenged to bear Sarpedon's death. What grief, what shame must Glaucus undergo, if these spoiled arms adorn a Grecian foe? Then as a friend and as a warrior fight, defend my body, conquer in my right, that, taught by great examples, all may try, like thee to vanquish or like me to die. He ceased, the fates suppressed his labouring breath, and his eyes darkened with the shades of death. The insulting victor with disdain bestrode the prostrate prince, and on his bosom trod. Then drew the weapon from his panting heart, the reeking fibres clinging to the dart. From the wide wound gushed out a stream of blood, and the soul issued in the purple flood. It's doing it again. His flying steeds the Myrmidons detain, unguided now their mighty master slain. All impotent of aid, transfixed with grief, unhappy Glaucus heard the dying chief. His painful arm, yet useless with the smart, inflicted late by Teucer's deadly dart. Supported on his better hand he stayed, to Phoebus then 'twas all he could he prayed. All-seeing monarch, whether Lycia's coast, or sacred Ilion thy bright presence boast, powerful alike to ease the wretch's smart, O hear me, God of every healing art. Lo, stiff with clotted blood and pierced with pain, that thrills my arm and shoots through every vein, I stand unable to sustain the spear, and sigh at distance from the glorious war. Low in the dust is great Sarpedon laid, nor Jove vouchsafed his hapless offspring aid. But thou, O God of health, thy succour lend, to guard the relics of my slaughtered friend. For thou, though distant, canst restore my might, to head my Lycians and support the fight. Apollo heard, and suppliant as he stood, his heavenly hand restrained the flux of blood. He drew the dolours from the wounded part, and breathed a spirit in his rising heart. Renewed by art divine the hero stands, and owns the assistance of immortal hands. First to the fight his native troops he warms, then loudly calls on Troy's vindictive arms. With ample strides he stalks from place to place, now fires Agenor, now Polydamas, Cneus next, and Hector he accosts, inflaming thus the rage of all their hosts. And with that we come to the end of the episode, and this has been very unusual, with our little friendly shade standing off the chair while we've been reading, and then reappearing on the chair, turning the page and closing the book every time we swap page. That's an interesting one, and I've got the sit down and read option actually. That's really unusual. So let's see what happens when I close that. Nothing. So can I sit back up? Read a book? Okay, it's doing it normally. That was an interesting little bug. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon or night. No matter what time of day it is, I hope you all have a wonderful one of it. And as always, we will be back tomorrow for more of The Longing. Goodbye.